Good evening. Good evening, y'all. This your girl Tiffany here live in the Fed. So I'm just gonna get straight to it. I came on my channel because I was on Brother DMG podcast, right? And Uncle was on there being interviewed. So I asked Unc some question regarding to Africans. And he made some valid points about how spirituality should be separated from science. But at the same time, I feel like I personally think spirituality can go along with science, right? So let's talk about it. There's a thing called anthro excuse me, anthro well, let me change it. There's a thing called personification. All right. There's a thing called personification. That means that you can use symbols, right, to express scientific knowledge. Okay. To make it easier for those to understand. I also want to address this. There's a lot of biased attitude, and pseudo killers have proven my point. They have proven that they are indeed very biased. Just listening to Uncle alone. If you guys saw the channel, right, the conversation went fine until he brought up the Nation of Islam and their channel, which is called the STEM Files. So he brought up the channel, the STEM Files, right? And these brothers and sisters are in the STEM community, but they happen to practice the Nation Islam religion. The first thing he say, they are pseudo. And I said, I'm not going to go back and forth and debate you on this man's platform, which I mean that there's a reason why. Because out of respect for that brother's platform, I decided to come over here. Now, I hope that he can show and prove why he thinks that these people are pseudo. Because last time I checked, watching their channel, those brothers and sisters, they are very knowledgeable. They are well thorough when it comes to scientific knowledge. Now, he's basing it off of the fact that these people are anti-vax. They do not support vaccine, right? That's his argument. But let me say this. Just because somebody does not support vaccine does not make them a pseudo. Now, it'll be pseudo if they were telling people, don't get vaccinated. Just use herbs. Then you can say that is pseudo. But if they have a personal reason why they don't support vaccine, then who are you to call them pseudo? And you know, it's funny because the word has been tossed around so much. It has been overused. So the moment somebody may disagree with something, they automatically label as being pseudo. Now, I want to say this. I can recall in the past, Alt claimed that he never said African spirituality was pseudo. But I remember him saying that. I remember when he was going in on African spirituality, but I digress on that. And I also remember that he said meditation was pseudo. Now, this is where you have to be put to the challenge. If you're going to say that, then you have to show the research method and you have to show the studies that indeed meditation is considered to be pseudo, right? Or anything considered to be pseudo. And I know he was up there showing his little presentation or what he did with Dr. Ma'at. I understand. I get it. I understand. I get it. But at the same time, what I noticed, it's so easy for you to call out everything pseudo, but you don't always back everything up. So I'm going to ask you this. What practical solution do you have for people who are going through a stressful moment in their lives? Right? Since you say certain things are pseudo, what type of practical solution do you have for people and how they go about dealing with everyday stress? What practical solution can you offer to people about mental health? What practical solution do you have? I'll wait. And I also want to say this. There are brothers and sisters within the schools of thoughts, whether they be 5%ers, the Nation of Islam, Muslims, or those who are practicing Ifa. They have college degrees. And a lot of those degrees are in STEM. A lot of those degrees are in STEM. But see, you don't give them credit for that because you so focused on the fact that they represent a certain school of thoughts. So if I was to say there's some brothers in the Nation of Gods and Earth that have degrees in biology or in anthropology or something, forget about the degrees. You're focusing on the fact that they are 5%ers. And that's a problem. That's a major problem right there. And before any of you try that, well, she's not very knowledgeable, she's not very wise. I have books. And I may not know everything, but I got books and information by those who are black. Okay? Or those who are in the Nation of Gods and Earth. I have these books. Okay? And I had the pleasure of interacting with certain people. You know, I only see a few representation of black folks on Pseudo Killer's channel. Only a few. But overall in general, I think they are too embarrassed to give credit to the African people. And I'm not talking about just those in Egypt. We got to get past Egypt. What about those in Central West Africa? What about those during the time of Timbuktu? What about those African people? They don't deserve credit for their scientific knowledge? And somebody said, well, there's no such thing as white man science, which indeed that is true. There's no such thing as white man science, but there is a such thing called ethnoscience. There is a such thing called ethnoscience. And it's spelled ETHNOSCIENCE. Ethnoscience. All right. And it deals with it from a cultural standpoint. Okay. See, we carry on the mentality of those in this Western culture, which has been brought about the Europeans. So because we have this Western way of thinking, right? That's all we know. So people like Ankh and many others and pseudo killers, they have the Western mindset. They have that Western way of thinking. They're not going to look at the African worldview, and they're not trying to deal with that. They don't care about that. Because if it doesn't deal with European ideology, right, or Western culture, then it doesn't hold any significance. And I'm not knocking science at all. Let me tell you something. I'm a person that advocates for science. I advocate for STEM. But what I'm not going to do is sit around here and be very biased towards my own people. Are there black people who are bringing in pseudo knowledge? Absolutely. Are there people out there taking advantage of individuals? Absolutely. But I'm gonna say this: not everybody is looking to take advantage of individuals. Not everybody is looking to make profit. There are people who actually trying to come up with some form of solution to help the black community. But these people are not given credit to. I can find brothers and sisters right now that are 5%ers that are in the Nation of Islam or any other school of thoughts that are in the STEM program. But Ankh and those in pseudo killers, they wouldn't know because they're not going to do the thorough research. And if you notice on that channel, he was getting into the conversation about those in ancient Kemet. I end up leaving the channel because, as I told him, I'm not going to disrespect that brother's platform. You know what I'm saying? Because I already knew it was going to be a debate. And I said, nah, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do it because the brother didn't want to be on there very long because he wanted to tend to his family. So I said, I'm going to come over here and talk about it and have a conversation, have a discussion. But you can't see progress in the black community if you're going to continue to be very biased towards your own people. And it seemed like you call black people pseudo more than anyone else. And you can feel how you want to feel about me. I don't care. But I'm going to share some books just so you know I'm not way behind. You know, there are people who are actually, who have credential, who know how to do research methods, scientific methods. All right, for example, this brother right here, brother Tika Kilimanjaro. I think that's how you say the brother's name. This brother right here, he has a whole catalog of books. He has his own press company. Okay. This brother worked at a HBCU at Fisk University. Yeah. Which is located out in Tennessee. Not to mention, he go through the research method. He followed the research method. But this book right here is dealing with morals and principle of living. Basically, is dealing with wisdom, quotes, whatnot. A pretty decent book. So, and then you know what's so funny? This brother right here was called Pseudo, and his name was African. He goes by the name African Creation Energy, Professor Ace, based in Atlanta. This dude has a degree in physics, mathematics, and engineering. This brother has an actual degree. And the way he has this book written, right? He wrote this book the way that he wrote it because he knows the audience that he's dealing with. So he tried to make it simple for those individuals who are watching the videos or even reading his books to get a better understanding of scientific knowledge. Can't you do that, brother? Can't you go about explaining scientific knowledge in a way that is very simple? You can't you go about explaining scientific knowledge where people can fully understand? Because this brother have done a good job. And he got another one called Pata Technology. Non-ether re-engineering. It may seem like it's pseudo, but guess what? It deals with scientific information in a way that he can actually explain it to the community. And I had the honor and pleasure to have this guy on this platform and interview him. I had the honor and pleasure to have this brother right here on the platform to interview him. This book right here was written by a 5%er, Supreme Understanding, and C-Best Allah. This deal with the science of self. Now, I will say this. There is some 5% lessons in this book. There's some 5% lessons in this book. Of course, because the brother is a 5%er. But if you read it, there's also dealing with scientific information in here. He talks about biology, anthropology, psychology, geology, just to name a few, in this book. And if anybody want a good start into understanding scientific knowledge, I will recommend this book to any individual out here. And not to mention, this brother didn't use AI. Okay? He didn't go use AI quotes. He actually studied and researched. And he actually cited his sources. So, the science of self. Now, if you're going to talk science, If you're going to talk science, you got to talk about spirituality. Why is that? Because when we study about scientific knowledge, you'll know that during the proto-science era, there was spirituality. And science came out the school of spirituality. And spirituality and science both came out the school of philosophy. So you got to have philosophy, epistemology, and you got to have science. Because philosophy introduces you to the knowledge, to the wisdom, right? Epistemology deals with the study of knowledge. Again, epistemology deals with the study of knowledge. And then science deals with the application of knowledge. I'm glad you said that, because one day I can go into the history behind the associates, bachelor, and master's degree programs, right? I can go into that history dealing with their academic degrees, where did they really come from? Where's the origin of those academic degrees? I can go into that. And it's very surprising. You know, when I get into a better situation where I can actually do more videos and bring about presentation, because there's a lot of things that I can really touch on that Pseudo Killer is not going to touch on. But yeah, there is an origin behind the academic degrees that we know of today. There's the origin behind the associate, bachelor's, master's, and PhD. PhD, for those of you who don't know, means the doctor of philosophy. That's what PhD stand for, doctor of philosophy. You cannot have a PhD without philosophy. And speaking of that, here's a book called The History of Philosophy by A.C. Grayling. The History of Philosophy by A.C. Grayling. You have to go into that origin. You got to go to the very beginning. And I'll be right back because I got another book I want to show y'all real quick. This book right here is called Theory of Knowledge, Dimension of Philosophy series. The Theory of Knowledge, which deal with the epistemology. That's all it is, the epistemology. So if anybody tell you that philosophy is not important, then maybe they should not even deal with science. Maybe they should not deal with science. There's more. All right, you guys. I'll be back. I'm trying to go through my archives. This is what happens when you have a lot of books. Okay. So I have it somewhere, but anyways, the book I was trying to look for, it deals with the philosophy behind biology. But I do have another book. Oh, here it is. There we go. All right. So here's a book called The Philosophy of Biology. Okay. And then we can talk about anthropology, right? Exploring Medical Anthropology by Donald Jorel Munn. Okay. So it goes through the anthropological information behind medicine. Let me see what else we got over here. Introducing medical anthropology. Here's another one. And why am I showing this? Because for a long time, our people have always dealt with science. Our people always dealt with what we refer to today as STEM. However, these people did not have degrees like you do in modern time. But just because they did not have degrees does not mean they was not scientifically literate. Again, just because those people did not have degrees does not mean that they were not scientifically literate. Yo, what's up, sis? What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? If you want to come through and say something, I can go ahead and post a link in there for you. But yeah, you know what I'm saying? Getting back to what I was saying, though. Those who are into... Okay, hold on. I got you. I'm finna go ahead and post that link on there right now for you. I'm gonna let you go ahead and speak. All right. Let me go ahead and post it in here. All right. All right, then. So while I'm waiting on the young lady to come up here, I just want to say this to y'all. Our people had scientific knowledge. Neil deGrasse Tyson made a quote. He said that nature was the laboratory and our ancestors were scientists. Nature was the laboratory and our ancestors were scientists. Think about that. All right, let me get my sister Honey up here. What's going on? How you doing?
Hey, boo.
What's up?
I was happy to find you live. I was like, oh, look, I found you. She live afterwards.
Yeah. You know, I had to come up here because I had to address it. You know what I'm saying? It's too many bias going on within the black community. I mean, I'm gonna let you go ahead and, you know, spill a little something.
Oh, yeah, no, I was agreeing with you wholeheartedly. I like the way that you were sourcing up on everybody, letting them know you got their books and stuff. Because I saw like the way the back and forth was going. It's like they trying to play. Like you want to play somebody because, oh well, I'm not out here preaching everything you preaching, or I'm not out here saying, okay, yeah, science is the end all be all. But that doesn't mean I don't understand it. That doesn't mean that I don't have an understanding of it. Just because I don't know how to pronounce a word when I'm cold reading it, don't mean I don't know what stuff means. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's that little stuff, and it's just like, you know what I'm saying? At least I know that you like keep bringing awareness to it, and I like that because it's like that's that ignorance that's making it where other people aren't going to even want to know it. They're not even going to want to enter that realm to even know about science or anything else.
Right. I mean, and even the people who claim to be advocates of science, you have to question, do they really understand science? Do they really know science? Or they only know the surface of it? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's what I
Yeah.
mean. Yeah, that's what, but a lot of people don't. Even the people who don't agree, it's like, how can you not agree with something you don't know? Right. Then I've heard people who say they're advocate for stuff and then they get to explaining it and they wrong in it. So like you can't. And then also the same time too, somebody might not know what you know about something. So wouldn't that be a time to teach them or show them? Because it was a time that you were ignorant to it as well. Like, you know what I'm saying? That's where we need to be if we're talking about building our communities and help people out. It's not to sit there and try to make fun and be little. It's also to help people grow.
Right. Facts. You know what I mean? And it's just quite sad because I'm gonna be honest, especially when we talk about individuals being in different schools of thought. So as I mentioned earlier, there are people who are in the Nation of Islam. There are people who are 5%ers. Just to name a few, there are people who are Sunni Muslims who are actually in the STEM, who has a degree in STEM. You understand what I'm saying? So,
Oh yeah, I don't think it mixes. I mean, I tell people a lot of times to be careful when you try to mix your, the science and math with versus like your belief system,
mhm.
because that's where people come try to attack you. You know what I'm saying? I can't attack anybody who says they have a belief. It's your belief, right? But the math is here, the science is here, the technology here, and then our belief is here. If we can keep that like that, everybody will be good.
Right. True. Very true. Um, and yeah, people just gotta learn how to separate it. But at the same time, can people use some elements from what they learn from spirituality, incorporate into science in a way they can? Because they can use the symbolism. And when you can use a symbol to describe a scientific knowledge, so that way you could bring about better interpretation and develop your own understanding. You see what I'm saying? It will help you out a little bit better.
Oh wait, how do you mean?
Like, okay, so let's say, for example, let's say like personification, right? Let's say, if you try to describe, I'm gonna give a good example. Let's say you try to describe a natural phenomenon. Let's say you describing a thunderstorm or something. Um, and if it's like those who are practicing Ifa, right? They'll use a goon. So a goon is a symbol of thunder, which represents power. You see what I'm saying? Are you following me with that?
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely. I definitely understand that.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Because when you know what's happening, then you know how that goes. Yeah. So that makes sense.
yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes I just think they have a people. I know in the process church hurt, but it's like, people have this extreme bias the opposite way. So where it's like if you do have a belief or if you don't have 100% belief, in science, then you are wrong, you're crazy, you're stupid, all of this stuff. And it's like, I don't have to believe abiogenesis. I don't believe in it. I don't care what anybody says. I know what science is. I don't follow that. It to me is just as miraculous as a it's just as miraculous to me as the Bible story. We coming from a single cell organism. How's that any different than coming from the dirt? Like, to me, that's the same, right? I do know what the science is. I don't believe it.
Right.
Right. And so you want me to have to believe that though. But I can't believe over here. No, I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah, just like, for example, I have my own personal views, my own opinion about the Big Bang Theory, because I feel like there is more information than what is being put out, because this is where I come from when it comes to the Big Bang. If only 5% of the universe is based on observation, right? And 25% is dark matter, and 70% is dark energy, then how can you come with the concept about the Big Bang Theory? So I have my skepticism about it. That doesn't mean that I don't care for science or I don't know science. It's just I have some questions. Now, I may not be able to actually prove it as far as like doing research is concerned per se, because that's going to take a lot of research to actually disprove the whole concept about the Big Bang Theory. But I have my skepticism, I have my questions, and we all have that, and that's okay.
Right. Yeah, because they think it's supposed to be unquestioned. But it's like if a lot of science went unquestioned, right, then we wouldn't have those sciences that fixed science, right? Because you had the scientific racism that's, you know, that was all throughout like the 1900s, the early 1900s, right? And then you had scientists who revisited those things and corrected things that were wrong in that. So you don't have to 100% just believe what comes out and whatever else. You can look at the methodology. You can look at how they came to these things and not agree. Now, I don't think that that should be a problem with people using their brains and their logic to not agree. Like
Right.
that,
It's
I don't know.
right. Exactly. And like I said, I'm gonna be straight up, and I don't care how anybody feel about this. Those in pseudo killers, they do not have the techniques to actually go out and do an actual debate with people that's in the universities or any colleges or whatever. They don't have that technique. So it's so easy for them to be comfortable in that little circle to debate
Well, to
those.
me, yeah, that's a lot of bandwagoning. To me, it's just a lot of that goes on.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, it's easy. Anybody can go against anybody that's a Moor, that's a Hebrew. I mean, it don't take much. Well, you can. It don't take much. You can debunk them with their own information.
Yeah, for facts.
You know
Facts.
what I'm saying? You can debunk them with their own information, so it don't take much to do that. It really don't take much because that's easy. You know what I'm saying? But what's complicated is now you go against somebody who's on that same level as you, or someone who may be more scientifically knowledgeable than you are, and now you gotta pull your weight up. You gotta step your game up. You can't just, you know what I mean? You can't just do what
Yeah,
Cedric
on
was
there.
doing the whole down.
Yeah, because when it's like you're right, exactly. Because when that's it, there, it's you going back and forth now. Because it's not like because people in the field go back and forth. They don't always agree. Doctors don't always agree. Scientists don't always agree. So then, when you stepping up to some people who believe the same thing as you, or who are following that same thing but have a different outcome, now that's a debate. Now that's okay. Well, which one is more sound? Which one better represents the evidence? Which one is better doing this, that, and the other? You know what I'm saying? Not pseudo. A lot of stuff that is pseudo. You know what I'm saying? It's like that's not being called out. What's being called out is questioning the consensus is what's being called pseudo, and that's just questioning it. That's not really pseudo to me.
Exactly. Yeah, you have to question it. You know what I'm saying? And if you don't question, then you may not get the answer. You know what I'm saying? So you have to be able to. And here's the thing: when you're dealing with debates, especially, you have to be able to support your claim. You have to come up with a better argument.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be able to have enough sources to validate your argument, or otherwise, your argument won't matter. You know what I'm saying? Even if you're right, it's all about how you go about supporting your claim. You know what I'm saying? So,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, and I'm gonna get back. I'm gonna get on this Cedric topic.
Yeah, y'all so. I was just on a YouTube, on another YouTube today, and somebody like, "Oh yeah, they on Cedric Head." And I'm like,
Yes,
everybody seen that, huh?
yes, because
Yeah.
it just looked crazy. You know what I'm saying? But I guess now we're in an age where you can just go to AI if you want to write a book. Just go type it
Right.
up and say, "Hey, I want to write a book about psychology." And I guess AI is going to do all the work. And it's like people don't really want to put themselves up to the challenge to actually take the time to actually write the book or write an essay or do a presentation, right? Put everything together. You know what I'm saying? Because these
Mm-hmm.
things take a lot of time to do. You know, you got to get the sources that you need and make sure the sources are reliable and they're not outdated. And you got to make sure you don't appeal to authority, you know, and then you got to make sure that you have a certain amount of books and you have a certain amount of articles available. Um, shoot, and and then you have to be able to make sure you type the information up properly. Make
Right.
sure you know how to use APA. You got you, yeah, yeah, the APA style format. That's the
Mm-hmm.
most common. Yeah.
But that's it. And then you also can have, you know how people do that. They act like they have you're so grandiose in how you approach people, how you talk to people, and look down on people, and then you get caught slipping like that, and you don't want to like fess up to that. Instead, you want to keep trying to, take cheap shots and doing that. And if it's about the information, you should just be, oh dang, I messed up. Let me do something different this time. Let me pay closer attention. Let me do that. But instead, it's all about trying to feel better than somebody and trying to dog somebody than it is about actually getting correct and accurate information. I'll tired people. That's crazy.
Right, exactly. And as I was stating, once I get myself in a position where I can actually do debates like how I want to do debates, because well, not how I want to, but the way it should be done.
Mm-hmm.
Because I want to be able to make sure that I have enough information. I know how to cite my sources properly. Um, and not only that, I
You
want,
in the bar, we do all of that stuff too. Like together. So whenever you need to, what I'm saying, we get sources. We do all of that.
yeah. Cause I got some books on a research method. As a matter of fact, here go one right over here. I got books everywhere. So if you saw my apartment,
We
you'll see that I
see
have books. I have books everywhere.
you got books. I said, oh, she got these sources. They be talking crap.
Yeah. I'm a bibliophile. I'm a bibliophile.
Absolutely. I see. I was like, oh, look at her pulling them out.
Yeah, see, I got this book right here about research methodology, right?
Mm-hmm.
I got this book, and I'm waiting on some information come for the APA format. Yeah, because it's only fair, so because in the near future, I'm planning on doing some debates, you know what I'm saying, or do some presentation, but I just want to make sure I'm on point. And a lot of people don't know that there's a style of debate called the Rogerian argument.
The Rogerian argument.
Yeah, the Rogerian argument. So I'm gonna show you what the Rogerian argument is. Okay. So it was named after Carl Rogers, who was a psychologist. He was the one that introduced what we know today as humanistic psychology. All right. So I'm gonna show you. I don't know if you can see my screen. Okay, there we go. All right, so right here, a Rogerian argument, also known as an invitational argument or collaborative rhetoric, is a non-confrontational approach to argumentation that emphasizes empathy and mutual understanding. It aims to find common ground and build rapport with the audience rather than directly refuting opposing viewpoints. Oh, hold on. Get her back on here. Yeah. So basically with that style of debate, you're not basically like attacking your opponent per se. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like you're just being more informative.
And you're getting to the part where you disagree. Where we're just gonna talk about this part.
Right. You get into the part where you disagree and you show why you disagree. So it's like you're coming from a professional place. And then what people don't also know about the Rogerian argument is you speaking from a third person point of view, as opposed to using the first person or second person pronoun.
Okay.
Yeah, I know that.
Well, that's probably a better way. That's probably a better way to do it.
Yeah, that sounds.
Because when you're looking at people who believe in certain stuff, and you're arguing your belief, you're almost like too close to it to even, because it's what I believe. I think this goes. So
Right,
so when you're looking at it from the outside as a third person, it's easier to kind of place the argument together and see both sides.
Right, exactly. There you go. So that's the whole purpose, because it's easy to argue from the first person or second person pronoun, you know what I'm saying? But when you do it as a third person, you know, again, you're introducing your point, but you're, like you said, seeing it from both sides. So, right. So that's the way that you actually can get a better point across. So, and the only time you use the first person or second person is when you're citing the sources or citing the information. Like if there's a source in the book or there's a source in the article that you want to cite, then you use that first person, second person.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah. So yeah, but like I say, that's gonna be a challenge. You know, I can't really get into these debate arena right about now because you know, people take things personal and they want to personally attack you. And being me, knowing how I am and how I come off.
Right. Hey, I'm the same way. I'm fiery. It's like I'm fiery, but I can take correction. I have no problem with that. My issue is that if I'm wrong and you want to be loud about me being wrong when I'm right, be loud about that too. Don't just be loud when I'm wrong. Be loud when I'm right too. Say, oh yeah, you got that right. That was good. Thanks. The same way you was like, that's dumb. You got that wrong. That's the only thing I don't like about it. It's like, be loud both times, when I'm right and when I'm wrong. We can take correction.
Right.
Everybody ain't right all the time.
Right. Facts. You know what I'm saying? Just guide a person through the information. If they're wrong about something, just guide them. Just show them, okay, this is where you messed up at, and this is how you can get this information across, etc. This is what you need to work on. Woo. You know, and just go from there. You know, so you actually showing people that you actually, you know what I'm saying, you actually trying to help as opposed to trying to harm a person.
Belittle.
Belittle, you know. So yep. So but yeah, it takes a lot. So people have to understand, like, if you get in this debating arena, you have to really understand the art to it. There's an art to debates, you know.
Yeah, that's a lot. People might think I'm right, so I should win a debate. But if you debate it poorly, you might lose. I mean, you might have been right and still lost.
Exactly. See, okay, so the problem is a lot of people when they get into doing that, they used to that street debate, the one that you do on the street corners, or
Right.
the one that you do at the barbecue, or when you playing spades, or when you're playing tonk or poker. That's the type of debate that people are used to. You know what I'm saying? So they used to that, they get drunk debate. That's why I call it the get drunk debate. Like you get drunk and you talk a whole bunch of trash and you get to cussing each other out. Yeah, that's the type of debate folks are used to doing. You know what I'm saying? They used to that street debate, and you can only get away with it for so long, but it's not gonna last you forever. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, it's gonna last when you just out and about, hanging out in the streets, but when you get into the actual arena, you know what I'm saying, you gotta put your big girl boots on, put your big boy shoes on, and get in there, you know what I'm saying, with a different mindset, you know.
Yeah.
Hey, Lights, what's going on? I like your little avatar. It kind of reminds me of what's the name of that show? What's the name of that show with Megan? It's on Marvels. It's about this woman. She plays like the female version of Hawk. Oh my god. I can't think of the name of the show, but it's a Marvel. It's based off of Marvel DC Marvel comic books. Can't think of the name of it. I think is it called She-Hulk? I think that's what it's called, She-Hulk. Yeah, I think it's She-Hulk. Yep, but yeah, that's a cool avatar. That's pretty dope. Yeah, it's pretty dope. It's pretty dope though. Yeah. Yep. Man, oh man. I'm gonna have to look up the name of. Let me find the name of it. I think it's called She-Hulk. Yeah.
Tiff, I'll be on tomorrow. I'll be on Sonetta at like 4:30 Eastern for I'm doing Why the World is Not 6,000 Years Old.
While the world's not 6,000 years old.
Yeah. Because,
Oh, I
a
mean,
lot of Bible believers or creationists think it's 6,000 years old.
wait, huh?
It's somebody in my chat who do this. He think the same thing. He think it's like, some off number, like 7,422 years, something crazy. But he think the same thing based on the Bible or however they broke that down. Oh.
Okay, so where's the physical evidence that the Earth is 6,000 years old? That's the part that kills me. Where in the Bible does it
Right,
actually?
because I kept saying that. And I'm like, well, there's no timeline here, though. So what are you using to make these?
I don't know. What type of measurement are you using? What type of measurement does the Bible use?
That's what I'm saying, because the Bible itself doesn't say that. It's
No.
people who are like combing the Bible, trying to say that, and it starts with the whole world being created in 6 days, like six actual days. And so
Wow.
it's like they're literally going by that, literally.
Wow.
So it's like
I
that's
mean,
what it's called, young Earth. It's a young Earth theory.
young
And
Earth.
I remember when it came around, but I didn't think people were actually going to pick that up, and they do, and I just don't understand why.
Young Earth theory. Hold on. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's part of
Oh,
creationism.
oh yeah. I see young Earth creationism. Wow. Yeah, the Abrahamic God between about 6,000 and 10,000 years ago. Mm, wait a minute. Okay. That's weird. That's strange. Because if we study the universe, right, they say the universe, according to scientists, is approximately 13.8 billion years old. So let's see. The universe is 13.8 billion
Yeah, they
years
got
old.
the Earth at like 4 billion, around 4.5 billion years.
Right. And Did I say the Earth or universe? Okay, the
You said the
universe.
universe. Yeah,
Yeah,
you said the universe. The universe said that it was the universe is about 14, but the Earth only is about 4 billion. Still billion, but 4 billion. So it's
right.
like 2 billion years after the universe, the Earth came around.
Right. So okay. So with that being the case,
So, yeah.
how do you get 6,000? And then wait a minute, you gotta look at the cosmos. You gotta look at the stars. You gotta look at the sun. You gotta look at
Mm-hmm.
the moon.
That's what I'm saying. It's like if you reject the dating of the things that we have now, because a lot of people, like you said about the carbon dating, a lot of them reject that dating because of how big the numbers are. Like um, carbon dating and say something is between 30,000 and 50,000 years old, stuff like that, right? So because it's like 20,000 years, they'll be like, oh, we can't depend on carbon dating and stuff. But there's so many other things that tell us that this world is older besides carbon dating. That's just like only one method of dating. So it's like, but what are you all using to date that though? Because I want to know, why did it stop? Like, why did things stop going so fast?
Mm, mm.
And minerals were made within 6,000 years. Why are they not still being made like that? Like, why isn't stuff still moving so rapidly?
Mm. Right. So that's where they gotta back it up with the science, because the Bible alone is not enough. Whoever the person that you debate, they gonna have to back it up with the scientific knowledge.
Yeah. So tomorrow I'm just doing the presentation on there.
Mm-hmm.
And then hopefully it'll lead to a debate after that. But I'm just doing a presentation first to show why that's not possible.
Right. I mean, it can't be possible. I mean, because let's see, we're Homo sapiens sapien, right? And the Homo sapiens been around for what, over 450,000 years approximately,
350,000, yeah.
right? And
Mhm.
then before that, you got the Homo habilis, the Homo
Homo habilis,
erectus,
yeah. Mhm.
the
We got Neanderthal. Neanderthals are older than Homo sapiens.
right, Neanderthals, what is it? The Australopithecus, Ardilopithecus.
Mhm.
I mean, that goes on and on.
Yeah,
So
because I know that they're going to reject evolution. They have to reject evolution, right? But if you reject evolution, you have to reject haplogroups. You have to also reject, what I'm saying, all these different things that go along with evolution. So it's like, so what science then are you going to go with?
right, and speaking of evolution, what people don't know about evolution, we think it's linear, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not linear. It's phylogenetic, because if we look at the classification, right, for us as humans, we are classified under the kingdom as animals. We have vertebrate, right? We have we're mammals. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we'll see that we have a lot in common with other animals out there. As a matter of fact, let me show you how crazy evolution is. I don't know if you heard or you read an article about that we have shared a DNA with bananas.
Yeah. Yeah. we have a little DNA share with everything.
That's crazy. With bananas?
With everything, yeah.
Right. I mean, and then when you go back, right, you gotta deal with, like I said, the cosmos, you gotta deal with the water, you gotta deal with the elements, you gotta deal with the cells, the tissues, you know what I'm saying, like the prokaryotic cell, the eukaryotic cells. Um, you know what I'm saying? I mean, and then you either gotta go into like the marine science or the marine biology, you know what I mean? Like deal with the water life, you know, because there's more life in the water than there is on Earth. Like
Yeah,
the Earth, I mean,
exactly. It definitely is on land. Yeah.
yeah, that's what I mean.
And we don't even know.
Right,
Like we don't know all of the stuff that's there even.
right, exactly. And it's like the water is what consists of 62% of the Earth population, or just the Earth in general, and the rest of it is just land. But yeah, most of the earth is covered by 62% water. So there's life inside the water. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's a lot that you gotta
That's why I was like, you rejecting a whole lot of stuff that we know. Like, I don't know.
right.
If you just say it's a belief, cool, but I don't know how you try to use science for it.
You ain't gonna get no science possible. And like the said, we are part of the natural world. We are, it's all connected. Yes, we're part of the ecosystem.
Yeah, human beings do have that much water.
Yeah, we do. We have a lot of water in our body. Yeah. Yeah, we're part of the ecosystem. You know, so when we die, you know what I mean? The only thing that's going to be left of us is our skeleton, because everything else is going to be decomposed. It's going to become food to other organisms. You know what I'm saying? So the only thing that you have left is your skeleton. Yeah, so you know what I mean? And then with your skeleton, that's where you can get your DNA information off of there. Like, I mean, when I say DNA is so powerful, it's really powerful. It's like you could be gone from this planet for 500,000 years and your DNA still leaves a mark on this planet.
That's cool, actually.
Right. Like you could be gone, you know what I'm saying? You can, let's say you done had a cigarette, right? And you drop the cigarette bud on the ground, and that cigarette bud lasts for about 700 years later, right? Your DNA is still on that cigarette bud. Like it just, you know, I mean, that's the beauty of science. That's the beauty of science. Yeah. But I hope you do a great presentation on there. I really do. What time are you doing it?
At 4:30.
4:30 p.m.
Yeah, you know. Yeah.
Eastern time? Okay.
Yeah. I'm a newbie, so I'm gonna open the act, y'all, tomorrow.
Oh, okay. That's what's up. That's what's up. Yeah. I wish you the best. I really do. I wish you the best on there. I know you're gonna come with some great information. What type of books are you having, or are you gonna use?
Yeah, I got all kinds of books at this point. I'm the bar reloaded.
Okay.
But I have, yeah, you know, like, because all the, like, archaeology, paleontology, all the different ologies, like I just told one of my barbarians that all the different ologies agree with this, right? And I know that people have heard it before, so I'm trying to just deal with, um, I'm trying to kind of show them like different things that has not already been brought for this, and I want to make it simpler. Because one thing I know about a lot of times when people call somebody pseudo, if you continuously talk over somebody's head, they'll never understand what you're saying. And so then they'll just be like, "Oh fuck it, I don't even care what you're saying." Like, you know what I'm saying? I don't agree. So I figure I want to just bring it down so that, you know, the average person can understand what's being said. So that's what I want to do. I want to break it down. So
Facts. That's it. Break it down. You know what I'm saying? That way a person can be able to comprehend. You know.
yeah, so that's it. You know, a lot of people feel like, well, they smart if they can talk over somebody. But if I want to reach somebody and bring them to what I'm trying to bring, I need to talk to them in a way they can understand it. Everybody don't always read this shit every day. It's not normal.
No,
That's
it's
not a
not.
normal thing. So it's
No.
like, you know, you got to bring it out in a different way.
Right, exactly. It's not normal. It's not, but we use it all the time, though. That's the thing. We use it.
Yeah, exactly. We use it. We just don't know how. Just like a car, right? I can drive it. I don't know how it works. I couldn't fix it, but I know how to drive it, right? So it's
Right,
like that.
right,
You know, you got to break it down a little bit better.
right. Exactly,
So that's
exactly.
all.
Yeah. Now, the only science that is very complicated to explain to the average human, or just to anybody in general, in my opinion, will be quantum physics.
Yeah, physics is easier to see. when I was in physics in high school and like in college, it was easier. Like almost like when we were writing it, I almost couldn't understand it. But when you put it into like an experiment or something, it's like, oh, okay, got it. Made it so much easier. So physics is almost easier to do, to see it done, to see what somebody's talking about, to see the pulley, to see the kinetic energy, to see something push and get pulled, to see all of that stuff. Then you can see the wave pattern. You can see why it's like that. You can see why all these things are the way that they are.
Right. Most definitely, yeah. And it's like, for me, I don't know. I have a thing for quantum physics. I really do. um, because to me, it's like a mystery science because it deals with like subatomic particle, and you're trying to like figure out well, what that subatomic particle could be. Well, it's the photons, it's the electrons, and all of that, right? But now you're trying to bring the connection between quantum physics. Excuse me, you try and bring that connection between quantum physics and consciousness. You're trying to bring those two in connection. And there's still an ongoing research about whether consciousness exists or not.
Oh yeah. Um, I used to talk to Naga about that. You know, they like that God is light is electromagnetism stuff. I was like, yeah, if electromagnetism was conscious, you might have a point here, right? But it's like, it's hard. That's quantum physics is difficult. You have to think so outside the box with quantum physics,
Right.
like you know,
Right.
Schrodinger's cat and stuff. So
Yeah.
it's a different kind of way of thinking. It's too much for me sometimes. I'm like, okay, I don't know.
Well,
Leave
yeah.
that
I
one
mean,
alone. I don't know.
yeah. I mean, it is, but then at the same time, it just have you guessing. You have you guessing. So like, I would try to come up with an argument. Let's say, for example, when it comes to like dealing with that, let's say somebody been on anesthesia, right? You know, you getting ready to go into surgery, you get these medication to put you to sleep or whatnot, and you go under the knife. So while you in a deep sleep and you being operated on, your brain activity is still going. It's not gonna shut down. You know what I'm saying? Your brain is still going. So that would be my argument to say, well, there is some form of consciousness taking place. You know what I mean? There's some form, there's a possibility there could be a connection because if the person is under surgery, right, they can't feel what's going on with their body, but their brain activity is still taking place. So they're in their mind, they feel like they somewhere in a dream, like they somewhere on the island, or there's like little dots going through their head or whatever, right? Or they might be seeing things, or they might try to reconnect with somebody from the past. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, yeah.
Yeah, that's like what when I was looking at that book about like near death experiences and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
How like
Mm-hmm.
or out of body experiences when know
Oh,
what was
don't you
going
talk about no
on.
out of body
You know when
experience.
they had no when they had
Oh, don't you say that.
no activity going on.
Don't you say nothing
No,
about the
that
out of
book,
body.
yeah, that book was good. I was like, oh, okay. They got studies on this. Y'all talk
What's
about
the
it
name of the book?
pseudo? Hmm?
What's the name of it?
Oh man, I gotta remember it now. It
You
was
heard
hold on, because it was
you heard about
Doctor. Yeah.
you heard about the concept about the DMT?
What concept is that? I never had that before. I heard
Uh
about it, but what is the concept behind it?
let me see. I can look it up real quick. DMT theory. Um, so let me see. It's a book actually. It's supposed to like deal with the pineal gland and all of that stuff. Um, yeah, all of that. Yeah. So it's supposed to go into like the pineal gland and things like that.
Well, I know. I've never heard anything about it.
Okay.
But I know people. I know people talk about like being high on it. It's like, they go to different places or something.
Right.
I've
Like
never
here, I'm on
seen.
Wiki. Hold on, let me post a wiki real quick. Post it up real quick. All right, so right here on Wiki, right? Um, it talk about like it's being considered as a hallucinogen. Is used in psychedelic drugs and things like that.
Well, that it definitely is a hallucinogen.
Yeah, yeah. So
So they said, but it might be real. Well, the name of that book I was talking about is After.
after,
It's called After by Bruce Grayson, and it
okay.
was talking about these like they did like hundreds and hundreds of studies all around the world about near death experiences, and it was talking about how like some people they were studying the fact that even though people had flatlined, right? They had no brain activity, they had no heart activity, they had some no activity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they were able to be brought back to life and have memories of things that were happening when their body had nothing going on, right? And so they were using that to say that it seemed like it was some kind of consciousness that extended outside of the body, because when the body had all the way shut down, you had an experience. And then when you brought back, you were able to remember the experience. So like that's what he was talking about in that book.
Okay.
So it's like if your consciousness is like, I guess the question of that book was more so like if your consciousness is predicated on your body, like you
Mm-hmm.
being alive, then
Mm-hmm.
how can people be clinically dead and still have an experience?
Hmm.
If they're clinically dead, how could they have had an experience when they're brought back to life? Their heart starts pumping again, everything starts flowing again, and they start talking about what happened when their body had nothing going on. It was flatlined, it was dead. How
Oh.
could you have had a conscious thought? How could you have had any experience at all? So, like, that's what that book was talking about. It was like questioning that.
So they'll be like basically similar to somebody going into a concussion, right? Like when you have a
No,
concussion.
no, because a concussion, your body's still going, right? And when you're in a concussion, you might not be alert, but your heart is still pumping. Your brain is still going. You just aren't awake. This is like they flatlined. They were dead, and
Hmm.
then they were brought back either with the defibrillators, you know what I'm saying, with CPR, but they had flatlined, and then they were brought back. So it's like if you were all the way dead, how the hell did you have the thought process? Like, how did you have a near death experience to where you're brought back to life and you're like, oh my God, this went on and that went on and that went on? How did that all go on if your consciousness needs your body to be conscious?
Hmm.
You should have just been dead. So that's what he was questioning. So that book was good. It had a lot of like testimonies from near death experiences. It had a lot of the studies the medical studies that they did on it, and then like him just kind of, it wasn't religious, but it's just scientifically looking at it like
Mm,
that could be something that happens without our body. It could still be going on.
mm. It's funny that you brought that up. You better not even say that to them. You better not talk about the astral
Well, that was one
projection.
of the books that Cedric lied about. That was one of the ones he lied on.
What, the
So
astral projection?
that book, yeah, the book after is one. That's how I know what's in it, because I was looking through it for his little whack quotes that he didn't, that weren't real.
He was dealing with the one about astrology.
No, yeah, he did that one too. But he also did one. I'm gonna send you the book. He also did one about the Nepal's debate about her. She did a presentation about near death experiences, out of body experiences,
Mm-hmm.
and he went to that book
Mm-hmm.
and he started to misquote from that and started misrepresenting what the doctor was saying in it. And so
Mm.
I had got the book, and it was looking for his quotes and couldn't find his quotes. So I started reading it to make sure that this doctor was saying, what he was saying, and he was saying the opposite. So yeah, that was another one he misrepresented.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, because the first thing they'll howl out is astral projection is pseudo.
Mm-hmm.
They say that's
Yeah,
pseudo.
well, because it wasn't about that book wasn't about astral projection. It was about a near death experience.
Right.
So the difference is like astral projection is usually something that you do on purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, that you choose to do, and you usually are not traveling like in this realm, but in another one, which that also happens with near death experiences, as he's saying, but it's not on purpose. Like this person like died
Right.
versus you actually being living and projecting out your body something.
Right. So it's like when you take a psychedelic, right? It can alter your brain activity and then it can make your body stable, but at the same time your brain activity going because you thinking that you feel like you are in another place, right?
Right,
But
you're
you
seeing
still in
things that aren't there, and yeah.
yeah, but you still in that same place. And see that's yeah, so people try to argue that being pseudo because it's like, well, how can't you prove it? Well, that's based on personal experience. Somebody
Right,
can
because everybody can take it together, and we're gonna have different experiences.
right.
Even if we all take the same psychedelic at the same time, we'll have different experiences. And then if it was a group experience, that would have to be studied because how did that happen? Right? We all experience the same thing.
That part, the group study, that part. That's where the field research comes into play, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You would have to, I don't know, you would have to look at it in different ways. I know it just sounds spooky to some, but
Yeah. Yeah, it does. It does sound spooky because people feel like, well, that's not possible. How can't you leave your body? Like some people will ask, well, how did you leave your body?
right. And what do you mean? And does that mean you have because then it's on a spirit and soul question. And then how is that? How do you know you have that? And what is that? And blah, blah, blah. Then you got to go further than that. So yeah, it's a, it would be a rabbit hole to go down. Though.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, that's pretty deep. Wow, I didn't even know. That's sad. That's really sad. How you going? That's sad. That's sad. That's sad. So he misquoted the. Wow, that's sad. How was y'all able to point out the AI quotes? Like, how was y'all able to figure that out?
Well, because well, you can put it in AI and it can tell you if you put it in AI, it can tell you the probability of it being an AI quote, right? Like it's about 80% of AI quote, right? It would do that. But yeah, I've heard of Lazarus syndrome too. But then also it was just us looking it up. We went to the actual sources and typed it in and none of that stuff was there. So it's like he just didn't even look to see if this was a real quote. But we've seen it before in the back chat. Meta AI did it. It made up whole quotes, whole page numbers, and everything. And then we called it out on it. Somebody thought that they really had sources. Like, oh, look, see, they got books on this. We da 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 da. And we called it out. Hey, you lied. It was like, okay, I did lie because I wanted to back up my previous statements.
Wow.
So that already made me like really aware that AI can do some stuff like that. But to have your whole presentation riddled with it was crazy. Like he should have definitely looked into some of those books and seen if this stuff was on there.
Wow, that's strange because I was actually giving credit to his work. I was like, okay, he got a nice presentation.
I was too. I said, oh, that look nice. Okay, you done stepped his game up. He presented it all good.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And then until I looked at the girl's post, she was like, "This is all AI." I was like, "Huh?" She like, "Yeah, he used AI quotes." I was like, "What the hell? How do you do that? What kind of?" And then y'all called it out. I was like, "Oh my good, that's some lazy ass shit." You can't. I was like, he had me fooled for a moment. He had me really fooled. He had me. He tricked my ass. I was like, "Damn." How did you do that? How did you do that shit? Like, how? 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 Why? Oh my God. That's crazy. That's insane. That's insane. Damn. That's insane. Man. That's insane.
Yeah.
So it's only 2 so
but
far.
it was fun catching them because he definitely called us stupid. It was 3.
Wow.
It's 3. I didn't do the other ones that extensively, but I will probably. He's been hiding. But it's 2 more that he did. Both the ones against Nepal, he did the same thing on. He got whole slides saying this is direct source and it's not. Direct quote and it's not.
Wow. So he didn't actually read the book?
No, he didn't read any of that. He went to ChatGPT and said, "Hey, could you create me a slideshow?" And ChatGPT created it and he just presented it. So he didn't look to see if any of that stuff was real. You couldn't have because it was 100% false. And one of those things he supposedly quoted was like a two-page little article, and it wasn't in there. Like you could read that in 5 minutes, and that quote wasn't there. Like you didn't read anything.
So you tell me he did not vet the sources?
No, he didn't look at any of those, so he couldn't have. Because we wouldn't have been able to go. We went through slide by slide.
Wow. Wow. What the hell? What?
Yeah, we went slide by slide and it was all wrong. And then we did the same thing with Nepal thing, the first one and the second one. Every time we had a quote, it was wrong.
Wow. What the hell? What the hell? If that ain't pure laziness, I don't know what you call it.
Right, that's what I said. I said, dang, you ain't even try to look it up a little bit.
Damn.
And then said I couldn't read. Nah, you said I couldn't read it. You didn't read at all, sir. Now I'm reading all your sources. You mad?
Damn. Wow. Yeah. Like I said, because if I'm trying to do some debates in the near future, yeah, I'm gonna have to make sure I get the sources, make sure I got my references on point, man. And I mean,
you know, Big Melvin.
Yeah,
Melvin got all this. That's our librarian barbarian. He come through.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, I know how Melvin get down. Yeah,
like Melvin.
So. Yeah, because to do a presentation, it takes time. It takes time. You have to put the time and effort into it. You have to be diligent. You know what I'm saying? You have to be you have to be really diligent about doing your research and about your sources, and you have to be able to cross-reference those sources that you use. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, yeah, damn. Damn.
Well, I'll let you go. I know it's late. I gotta finish my little finishing touches on this little thing for tomorrow.
Okay.
He definitely always thinks he's the smartest guy in the room, Juana, and he never is.
Well, damn, boy, damn.
Well, thanks for having me on your live.
All right, then. I appreciate you. Later. I appreciate you, and hopefully we'll chop it up some more.
Oh yeah, peace, y'all. Peace to the chat.
All right, then. Peace. All right, and then just send me a little snippet of your presentation. What it look like.
Okay.
All right, then. All right, take it later. All right, peace. Yeah, shout out to that sister, man. Shout out to her. You don't find too many people like that. You don't really find too many people like that. You know what I'm saying? So that was a intelligent, legitimate conversation that we had. You see what I mean? Here it is. This young lady and the brother, Melvin, right? They know how to actually look up information, like she just told you. The AI quotes. I didn't even know that because, I don't know much about the AI generator like that. I don't really know. But I didn't know that people could just get stuff typed in and say, hey, do me a presentation, etc. And there you go. I didn't know that. But yeah, you have to really, like I said, you have to really take your time doing this stuff. You have to really take your time. You have to be diligent about your information. You really have to be serious on it. So anyways, let me get back some more information real quick. There's a lot of stuff I have. This book right here, it's called Black Health Matters. Now, this is written by someone who actually is an MD, okay? Who has a medical degree, a medical doctor. And he talk about the importance of health in the Black community. Richard W. Walker. All right? This is when you get into the understanding about healthcare. I recommend this book to everybody because you got to take your health seriously. You got to put your health into focus. Just saying. You got to put your health into focus because if you don't, then you're going to be sorry later. Man. When I tell y'all, if y'all saw my apartment, right, and you see all the books that I have, you'll be like, God damn, Tiffany, you got a lot of books. You know what I'm saying? And I'm eventually going to try to use as much as I can because, as I said before, I am looking forward to doing presentations and maybe doing some debates in the near future. But yeah, I gotta do something with my books. So I ain't gonna, in my lifetime, I'm not gonna be reading all of it. I'm probably gonna read about maybe less than 10% of the books. Yes, I have books on the floor. Yes, I do. I got books on the floor. I'll probably be reading by less than 10% of my books. This book right here is called The Beginning of Western Science. So if you want to talk about the origin of Western science, right, this is the book right here. This is the second edition. I mean, it gets into the origin of what we call today Western science, which is the modern science that we use in our society. David C. Lindbergh. I mean, this will be a good book to use for a debate. I ain't even finna hold you. If you really want to debate somebody and you want to talk about ethnoscience, which deals with the cultural aspect of science, this is the book. Man, listen. Listen, man. Oh my God. Let me see. What other book do I have over here? The Age of Intoxication. The Age of Intoxication. Origin of the Global Drug Trade. Come on now. Come on now. Come on. Come on now. Man, listen. Come on. Listen. Man, hold on. And here's another one. Crack, rock, cocaine, street capitalism, and the decade of greed. You know what? One day I'm gonna have to show all my book collection. I'm gonna have to show all my book collection because I got a lot of books. If I was to say how many books I have, it'll probably be like up to like 200 plus books. About 200 plus. 200 plus. Including some textbooks from college. Man. Oh, man. I got so many books. Ooh, hold on. Nah, I don't spend my whole paycheck. Nah, baby. I don't spend my whole paycheck. These are books that I had over the years. This one's called The Dictionary of Theories. Okay, so you learn about different type of theories. If you want to know different type of theories, all you gotta do is get this book. I mean, look here. The body keep the score. Brain, mind, and body in the healing of trauma. Look. Anthropology. Everything you need to know to master the subject in one book. Man, look. Look. Evolutionary psychology. Man. Look. Oh my goodness. Oh my God. Some of them are, but they're not. Most of them are not expensive. Most of them are not that expensive. Shit, man, listen. Robert Walker, The Blacks and Science, Volume 2, West and East African Contributions to Science and Technology, Intellectual Life and Legacy of Timbuktu. Look. Another one, Ancient Egypt. And look. Black Science, Volume 3, African American Contribution to the Science and Technology. Man, look. I mean, hey, what's good? Listen, man. Listen. And I'm not going to sit up here and brag about myself. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to brag about myself, but I'm just saying, if I really want to do any debates, I got the sources. I just got to get myself down pat. I got to get all this book up. Smart. Can't you go over your introduction to the conscious community and your background? You've been on YouTube for a while, I observed. Okay, so real quick, I'm glad that you asked. So, my introduction to the conscious community. It started off where I interacted with the Nuwaubian Nation, right? I never joined the Nuwaubians, but I interacted with them because I used to go downtown all the time. But before I knew about the conscious community, I was already on this path, so to speak, when I was in college, because this was a time when I studied about the Illuminati, Freemasonry. I was watching this movie called Zeitgeist, which happened to be one of my personal favorites. Yep. So, but my introduction to the conscious community was with the Nuwaubians, right? My interaction with them. You know, I never joined them, but I used to always talk to them every single day, go downtown in the area. I would either go to their classes. And then I decided to make a transition I decided to become a Hebrew Israelite. Yep. And that was kind of my mistake. That was a big mistake, but at the same time, I appreciate it. One thing I could say about the Hebrew Israelite culture that I was a part of, they were very African-centered. They were very, very African-centered. But then I found out some things after I left the Hebrew camp about one of the priests, the teachers. I found out some terrifying things, some horrible things about him, which broke my heart because, you know, this brother was very humble. He was very, he was very friendly. I was just, when I tell you I was devastated, I was really devastated because I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to believe what I was hearing. And so I heard about the allegations after maybe 2 or 3 years after I left. Yeah. But before that, I was a Hebrew for probably about 2 years. Yup. Then I left that alone, and I just pretty much been on my own since then. Now, if y'all want to know how I met Unc, so I met Unc at an event that was taking place at a Caribbean restaurant. And they had this whole event about the war on religion. They had this whole event about war on religion, right? So the concept was women in religion. And at that time when I met Unc, he was banging on religion. He was with that real black atheist stuff. You know what I'm saying? He was banging on religion. So this before he had the Amara squads, the pseudo killers and all of that. He was banging on religion. Yeah, that was his main thing. Okay. Now one thing I can say is, he pointed some things out in the Bible that had me questioning about, the scripture, the religion altogether. So right then and there, I made my decision to leave the Hebrew Israelite organization. All right. I made my decision. And then I met another friend who's a 5%er, and we've been cool ever since. You know what I'm saying? So I got a little bit of knowledge about the 5% nation. As a matter of fact, I got thorough knowledge about the 5% nation. I could have been a 5%er, but I choose not to. And I have my personal reason not to. But yeah, I grew up into the Christianity and the Islams. I grew up going to church, to a Baptist church, and then I grew up into the Sunni Islamic doctrine. So, I have some Islamic background as well. Yeah. Yeah, so ever since then, I've been keeping up with like things online. I've been in various groups. I've been in Team Osiris. Let's see. I never joined the Amara squad, but I always had interaction with those in the Amara squad. But I did join Team Osiris, and I left because things went bad. Let's just put it like that. Things went bad. Things really went bad. Yeah, at that time, I wasn't in Atlanta when I joined the Sunni Muslim. I wasn't in Atlanta, but it is very strong out here. Yes, it is. But at that time, I wasn't a Sunni Muslim out here in Atlanta. I was a Sunni Muslim when I stayed in Ohio. I was living in Cleveland with my mother. Yeah. And they have a very strong Islamic community up there in Cleveland, in Detroit, Chicago, Philadelphia, especially, New Jersey, parts of New York. They have a very strong Islamic community, you know. And one thing I would say about the Islamic community, they value STEM. They value science, technology, engineering, mathematics. They value that wholeheartedly. Like, okay, what is your methodological approach when reading a new book for the first time? Okay, it depends on what you're reading. It depends on what type of book you are reading and what subject you're dealing with. It depends on what the subject is and what type of book you are reading. I would say it's important to cross-reference. It's important to cross-reference. It's important to cross-reference a book. Look for primary sources, look for secondary sources if you can, and look for information that is peer-reviewed. Look for information that is peer-reviewed. Make sure that whatever that book that you are reading, right? You're welcome. Make sure whatever book you are reading, right, especially if it's nonfiction, make sure it has references. You always want to check for references on the back of the book. You always want to check for bibliography. That's what you want to check. Okay? And that's why I like to look for when I'm reading a book that deals with a certain type of subject. Say I'm reading something that deals with psychology. I'm going to look for the reference. And the reason why, because I want to be able to cross-reference. I want to be able to look for primary sources and secondary sources. That's what I'm going to look for when I'm reading. But I'm still learning like different methodologies as far as like the approaches are concerned. Um, I would like to learn how to do the research methodology and then get into the scientific methodology. You know what I'm saying? And the reason why I want to do the research part is because I have a very strong interest in sociology and psychology. So by me having interest in those fields, right? I want to be able to learn how to do like the qualitative research, the quantitative research eventually, right? That's what I want to do. But yeah, they do. They have a very strong, especially up there in Cleveland, they do. Yep. They have a very strong community up there. Yeah, shout out to Cleveland. Shout out to Cleveland folks. Yeah, shout out to Cleveland. Yep. Mm-hmm. Well, it's all about going through different schools of thoughts. When you go through various schools of thoughts, you start to learn more about yourself. You start to learn about different philosophical approach. You know what I'm saying? Different philosophical concepts about religion and all of that. No, I'm not originally from Cleveland. I was born in Akron, Ohio. So that's where I was born. And Akron is about 30 minutes away from Cleveland. It's 30 minutes away. That's where I was born. But I spent most of my life growing up in the South. I spent most of my life growing up here in Atlanta. Okay. So I spent most of my time in the South. More than I did up there in the Midwest. Smackron, Ohio. Yeah, Akron, Ohio. Same place where LeBron James is from. Yep, that's where I was born. But like I said, I spent most of my time growing up in the South, growing up in Georgia. Yep. You know what I'm saying? I got that Southern roots. No, I don't know LeBron personally. No, I don't know him. I know people who know him, but I don't know him personally. I never met him personally, to be honest with you. Yep. Whew, child. Well, you guys. Thank you all for coming over here and watching my video. Yeah. So my pseudo killer saga will continue. All right. And eventually I'm gonna get tired talking about these folks for real. But yeah, my saga will continue though. Cause I got more to say. I really have more to say. I really have more to talk about. But let me go ahead and get my books up and get ready for bed. And I hope you all have a wonderful evening out here. I hope you guys enjoy y'all productive night or day or whatever you are in the world, and just be safe. All right. So I'll keep you guys informed. Peace.